Hi, welcome to 2020 Tasty Treats with GourmetQuilter. We're doing 20 different projects this year, each with 20 parts. So this time we're doing some applique, we're doing some tree applique. So we've already started. This is the beginning of my forest up here. We've done 5 trees already. So we're up to tree number 6. There's a diagram here of all the trees that we're doing. These trees come from my imaginary garden. So there's a little bit of license allowed. Sometimes the colours are different, sometimes the shapes are different. But to my mind, they're still trees. So if you've already registered with GourmetQuilter to receive the pattern, you'll have a pattern that looks like this. We've got a diagram here of the finished block, and then we've got all the shapes ready to trace onto fusible webbing, onto a paperback fusible webbing, and they've already been mirror imaged so that they'll end up coming out the same way as the small diagram. So I've already gone ahead and I've done my tracing and my cutting out, and I've cut out my background piece of fabric to go with this block. So the blocks are all a variety of sizes for the trees because they could be used in lots of different projects. They don't all have to go into one quilt. You might want a large tree, you might just want a little small tree. So there's a whole variety of trees. So I've gone ahead, I've cut out all my shapes. The shapes on the pattern are numbered so that you understand what order they can be placed in. So number 1 obviously goes down first, and then others might overlap. So it's as much an indication of an overlap as it is in fact just an order of placement. So I'm going to place my tree trunk down first because it's piece number 1. And we have to remember that we lose 1/4 of an inch around the edges of our block if we're going to piece it in with some other blocks or piece it into anything. So I've got my tree. I'm using a steamer seam fusible web, and it's a little bit sticky, so it'll sit in position for me ready before I iron it, but I don't want to iron it until I know it's right. And then all these other little pieces on our tree, they're actually numbered. They don't have to particularly go in any particular order, but we'll start here with number 2, and that's going to sit on that little lower branch there. Again, just keep an eye on the edges, make sure that we're allowing for that seam allowance. Now this piece here actually overlaps. This is an unusual shaped tree. This overlaps right across here, and then this one here also does the same thing in the other direction. So we're covering over quite a lot of our branch by doing it this way, but I think it's kind of a cute looking tree. And then this one here goes here. Again, it's overlapping, but maybe not quite as much as that. Now to here, and then just the top piece here. So relatively simple, kind of fun. This is a bit one-sided, this top piece. It goes off to a side like that, so I'm quite happy with the look of that tree. I've just used some slightly different colour greens so that you get a bit of variation going on. Because I'm happy with that, I'm going to iron it in place. And then because I'm free motion stitching, I'm going to put a stabiliser behind. There's lots of different stabilisers that you can use. I'm using a lightweight cotton batting, and because I'm using a white fabric, I'm using a white batting. And I have to just be careful that I don't get little coloured threads in between, because they might show through and that would not be what I want. Now it's not a fusible batting, but I like to iron it behind there because it just helps grip together. The cotton sits together well. So I'm ready to do some stitching now. So much fun. I'm free motion stitching, so I've got a dark thread, just a regular 50 weight thread in there, and a regular sewing needle. I've set my machine up for free motion. So I'm just going to try and have a look and see how I'm going to stitch this, because I try not to do too many starts and stops when I free motion stitch, not for any particularly good reason. But I think if I start on the trunk here, I probably will find I've got to run into some issues with starting and stopping, but I'm just going to start and see how I get on and stop if I need to. So I'm just going to start down here at the base of the trunk. So just free motion stitching. When you're working on something small like this, it's kind of fun because you can just take your time. Your stitches may come out fairly small because you're concentrating, and that's fine. So I've got up to my first piece of greenery, and now I'm just going to go around that. Stitching fairly close to those edges. So I'm back to where I went onto the green, so I'm just going to go down that bit of tree branch there. And come up here. So I think we can probably do something with this section. So I'm just going to skip across that little bit of tree trunk there and then come down and do this other side. And then I'm going to have to start again to do the upper half of the tree, I think. Just make sure you stitch along all the raw edges, even if you have to back up just a little bit. And I'll come back to where I started, so I can just finish up there, and then I can do this exactly the same thing. I can start and I can come up here and I can do what I can in one go, and then I just have to stop and start again. So I'm just going to continue on doing the same thing with my tree, and I will show you when I get to the other end of it. So I found that I can just keep going if I just double back a little bit on myself. So I've got to here and there's a little bit of tree trunk there, and I can come along and just do that in the middle of this, as long as I just make it look like a continuous line going around there. So the same thing's going to be happening here. I'll come back to where I went onto this green, but then I'll back up a little bit and come down this bit of trunk, and then skip onto that little one and just double over that little bit of stitching, which won't show. And I'll come back, and I've done all the stitching now, and then we only had to do those two starts. So that's looking pretty good. Just go ahead and press that. And there's the tree for this time. This is tree number 6. So this forest is really growing. That's a happy little tree, that one, sitting in there. Oops. Oh, I'm pretty excited by this whole forest going on. So that was tree number 6. Thank you. And if you're looking for more information, go to GourmetQuilter.com. Otherwise, we'll see you back here again for tree number 7.